It was 1917, the year the world lost its sanity. Across Europe, millions of men lived and died in a nightmare of mud, blood, and steel. Trenches stretched for hundreds of miles, dividing not just armies, but humanity itself. Every inch of ground was fought for, lost, and fought for again, a war not of victory, but of exhaustion. A war of attrition. From the frozen wastes of the Somme to the gas-soaked fields of Ypres, this was a war fought by machines, fueled by sacrifice, and paid for in lives. Today, on History War Chronicles, we relive the darkest year of the Great War, when technology met tragedy, and the human spirit faced its ultimate test. Part 1. Stalemate and the Endless Trenches. By 1917, Europe was locked in deadlock. The Western Front had become a graveyard of hope, a scar across France and Belgium where men lived like ghosts. The trenches were a world of their own, a few feet wide, miles long, and filled with the stench of death. Rats fed on the fallen. Mud swallowed men whole. The constant drum of artillery blurred day into night. A young soldier wrote, "We live underground like moles. Every sunrise feels like a miracle." For commanders, strategy had turned into arithmetic, lives measured against inches of dirt. To win, they believed, one had to bleed the enemy dry faster than one's own side. At Verdun and the Somme, hundreds of thousands perished for gains so small they could be measured in meters. Machine guns cut down entire battalions. Artillery shattered minds as much as bodies. The world had never seen killing on this scale. And yet, neither side broke. 1917 dawned not with victory, but with despair. A year when the human cost would climb higher than ever, and when new weapons promised to end the stalemate, but only deepened the horror. The trenches were ready. The next phase of war would test not only armies, but also the limits of human endurance. Part 2. The Machines of Modern Death. 1917 marked a turning point. War was no longer just fought by men. It was fought by machines. The tank, the airplane, and the flamethrower were all born from desperation. Each invention promised a breakthrough, and each exacted a greater toll. At Arras and Passchendaele, British and French tanks lumbered across the mud, crushing barbed wire under their treads. But many broke down, sinking into the mire. Above them, biplanes dueled in deadly dances, pilots risking fiery death in the open sky. And then came the weapon that turned the wind itself into a killer poison gas. Chlorine, phosgene, and mustard gas were invisible demons that melted lungs and skin alike. A soldier later recalled, "The gas came rolling over the trenches like fog. You couldn't see it until it was too late." Technology was meant to save lives through victory, but it only refined the art of destruction. Entire landscapes were obliterated. Villages turned to ash. It wasn't just a war of armies anymore. It was a war of industry, science, and survival. And yet, amid the chaos, courage endured. Men still charged through the smoke, still believed victory was possible. But as machines grew stronger, the human body and spirit began to break. 1917 would soon reveal that even the bravest hearts could only endure so much. Part 3. The Collapse of Morale. After 3 years of slaughter, exhaustion set in. Men who had once charged fearlessly into gunfire now prayed simply to survive. In the spring of 1917, the Nivelle offensive promised a final breakthrough. Hundreds of thousands of French soldiers stormed the German lines and were slaughtered in days. The result was catastrophic. Entire divisions mutinied. Soldiers refused to leave the trenches, singing songs of defiance instead of battle cries. A letter from a French soldier read, "We are not cowards. We will defend France, but we will not march to our deaths for nothing. The British faced their own nightmare at Passchendaele, where rain turned the battlefield into a sea of mud. Men drowned in craters filled with water and blood. Commanders called it progress. Soldiers called it madness. The war had consumed faith itself. In every trench, there was talk of home, of families waiting for sons who would never return. The cost of attrition was no longer just measured in numbers, but in hope, trust, and the will to live. Still, they fought, because there was no way out, only forward. And soon, new allies and new horrors would arrive, changing everything once more. Part 4. The Turning Point, 1917's Legacy. By late 1917, the old world was cracking apart. Russia's revolution pulled the Eastern Front into chaos, while across the Atlantic, a new power emerged, the United States. Fresh American soldiers brought new strength and optimism to the weary Allies. But victory was still distant. The battlefields remained the same: endless mud, endless death. As the war dragged on, the meaning of attrition became clear. Not just breaking armies, but breaking civilizations. Whole generations vanished. Villages lost every young man. The earth itself was scarred, cratered, poisoned, and unrecognizable. And yet, through this darkness, humanity endured. Nurses tended to the broken. Families rebuilt shattered towns. From the ruins of 1917 rose lessons carved in pain. Lessons about technology, pride, and the cost of ambition. When the guns finally fell silent in 1918, the world that emerged was new and haunted. The war of attrition had proven one thing: that victory in such a war was only an illusion, for everyone had lost something that could never be replaced. More than a century later, the scars of 1917 still linger in the landscapes of France, in the memories of nations, and in the silence of graves marked "Unknown Soldier." The war of attrition taught the world that progress without humanity leads only to ruin. The trenches remind us that even the strongest machines cannot replace the human soul nor erase the cost of war. In every fallen soldier, in every name etched on stone, lies a question we still ask today. How far will humanity go before we remember what it means to be human? This is History War Chronicles, bringing the forgotten echoes of history back to life. Like, share, and subscribe, and join us as we continue uncovering the stories that shaped our world and the lessons that still define it.